Father, if thou art willing to remove this cup from me, yet not my will, but thine be done. And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in an agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became, as it were, great drops of blood, falling down to the ground. And rising up from prayer, and coming to the disciples, he found them sleeping from sorrow. And he said to them, Why sleep ye? Arise and pray, that ye enter not into temptation. While he was yet speaking, behold, a multitude, and he that was called Judas, one of the 12, went before them and drew near to Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said to him, Judas, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss? And they who were about him, seeing what would follow, said to him, Lord, shall we smite with a sword? And a certain one of them smote the servant of the high priest, and took off his right ear. And Jesus answering said, Suffer thus far. And he touched his ear, and healed him. And Jesus said to the chief priests and captains of the temple and elders who were come to him, Have ye come out as against a robber with swords and staves? When I was daily with you in the temple, ye stretched not forth your hands against me. But this is your hour, and the power of darkness. And they took him, and led him away, and brought him into the house of the high priest. And Peter followed afar off. And they, having kindled a fire in the midst of the court, and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. And a certain maid, seeing him as he sat by the fire, and looking intently upon him, said, This man also was with him. And he denied him, saying, Woman, I do not know him. And after a little while, another seeing him said, Thou also art of them. And Peter said, Man, I am not. And about the space of 1 hour after, another confidently affirmed, saying, Of a truth this one also was with him, for he is a Galilean. And Peter said, Man, I know not what thou sayest. And immediately, while he was yet speaking, a cock crowed. And the Lord, turning, looked upon Peter. And Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he said to him, Before a cock crows this day, thou wilt deny me thrice. And Peter went out and wept bitterly. And the men who held Jesus mocked him, beating him. And having blindfolded him, they asked him, saying, Prophesy! Who is it that smote thee? And many other things they said, reviling him. And when it was day, the elders of the people and the chief priests and scribes came together. And they brought him up into their council, saying, If thou art the Christ, tell us. And he said to them, If I tell you, ye will not believe, and if I ask, ye will not answer. But henceforth shall the Son of Man sit on the right hand of the power of God. And they all said, Art thou then the Son of God? And he said to them, Ye say it, for I am. And they said, Why need we any further witness? For we ourselves heard it from his own mouth. Chapter 23. And the whole multitude of them arose, and led him unto Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, We found this man perverting our nation, and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ, a king. And Pilate asked him, saying, Art thou the king of the Jews? And he answering said to him, Thou sayest it. And Pilate said to the chief priests and to the multitudes, I find no fault in this man. And they were the more violent, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee unto this place. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man is a Galilean. And learning that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him up to Herod, who also was himself in Jerusalem at that time. And Herod, when he saw Jesus, rejoiced greatly, for he had desired for a long time to see him, because he had heard concerning him. And he hoped to see some sign wrought by him. And he questioned him in many words, but he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood, vehemently accusing him. And Herod with his men of war set him at naught, and mocked him, and arraying him in a gorgeous robe, sent him back to Pilate. And Pilate and Herod on that day became friends with each other, for before they were at enmity between themselves. And Pilate, having called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said to them, Ye brought to me this man as one perverting the people. And behold, I, having examined him before you, found no fault in this man, touching those things whereof ye accuse him. No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you up to him, and behold, nothing worthy of death has been done by him. I will therefore chastise and release him. And they cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas! Who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder, was cast into prison. Again therefore Pilate spoke to them, desiring to release Jesus. But they cried, saying, Crucify! Crucify him! And a third time he said to them, What evil then has this man done? I found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise and release him. And they were urgent with loud voices, requiring that he should be crucified. And their voices and those of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that what they required should be done. And he released him who for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they required. But Jesus he delivered up to their will. And as they led him away, they laid hold of one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming from the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Jesus. And there followed him a great company of the people, and of women who also bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus turning to them said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, days are coming in which they shall say, Happy the barren, and wombs that never bore, and breasts that never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things in the green tree, what shall be done in the dry? And there were also 2 others, malefactors, led with him to be put to death. And when they had gone away to the place which is called a skull, there they crucified him, and the malefactors, one on the right hand, and the other on the left. And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they divided his garments, casting lots. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also scoffed, saying, Others he saved. Let him save himself if he is the Christ, the chosen of God. And the soldiers also coming to him mocked him, offering him vinegar, and saying, If thou art the King of the Jews, save thyself. And there was an inscription written over him, This is the King of the Jews. And one of the malefactors who were hanged railed at him, saying, If thou art the Christ, save thyself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Dost thou not even fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds, but this man did nothing amiss. And he said to Jesus, Remember me when thou comest in thy kingdom. And Jesus said to him, Verily I say to thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. And it was about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. And Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. And having said this, he expired. And the centurion, seeing what was done, glorified God, saying, Verily, this man was righteous. And all the multitudes who had come together to that sight, having beheld the things that were done, returned, beating their breasts. And all his acquaintance were standing afar off, and women who had followed him from Galilee, beholding these things. And behold, a man named Joseph, a counselor, a good and just man, He had not consented to their counsel indeed. From Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who was waiting